Hello, I'm reasonably British. This is barge cement, an excellent adhesive for leatherwork. The only downside is that it smells like cancer. For those who do not enjoy the occasional tumour, there is a wide selection of water-based contact adhesives and other non-toxic leather adhesives, but sadly they're not generally as strong as the cancer glues. That's okay, they're probably strong enough. But the internet doesn't seem to have decided which is the strongest of the non-toxic adhesives, and there are so many of them. They all seem so similar, and yet so different. So, I am going to test a bunch of the most popular non-toxic leather adhesives to find out which is the strongest one. At the end of this video, you will know what is the absolute best, not deadly leather adhesive on the market. Wait, don't skip forward. Okay, I'll tell you now. It's Aquilim 315. It was consistently just a bit stronger than all the others. If you want to know how I got to that conclusion, stick around, otherwise you can off. Okay, stop. Bloody hell. Okay, let's get started. This shouldn't be that difficult. As a great man once said, and I'm paraphrasing, I shall apply the scientific method rigorously until all the remaining excrement has been extracted. Or something like that. What's happened? Oh, that's right. I was sniffing glue again. So much f***ing glue. Every kind of glue. I thought this would be simple. You know, glue some leather together and measure how much force it takes to pull it apart. Oh, I was so naive, so innocent, so young. Why couldn't I have just blindly picked a brand of glue and just used it? Most of these glues will work fine. Why couldn't I have let it go? So, I started by cutting out tabs of leather and coating a 3/4 of an inch square with each of the adhesives. I know, you're saying, what do you mean, inches? Well, I said reasonably British. I'm not excessively British. Anyways, at least I'm not Welsh. Every test group was cut from the same piece of leather, and I tried to make sure that the grain and flesh were as consistent as possible. I needed a way to measure the force, and since I am a stingy mark, I got one of these suckers from Amazon. And oh boy, let me tell you, I concluded after a whole bunch of this, its performance was less than satisfactory. I decided to buy this force meter. It's much more accurate, and you can supposedly plug it into a computer and record the force curve instead of just the peak. For the second experiment, I tested the glues after 30 minutes, 3 hours, and 24 hours, and I would do each test twice, because everyone knows that the ideal size of any sample set is 2? Did I mention I have no idea what I'm doing? So, these are the results of the second test. It's quite obvious that despite my incompetence, there actually is a clear winner, barge cement. The rest is a bit of a mess, but you can kind of make out two groups, the PVA or EVA-based glues here and the water-based contact adhesives here. EcoWeld seems to be the leader, but if you look at 24 hours, Aquilim had the highest number. There were many issues with this test, but clearly a sample set of 2 is too small. I had to test again. This time I would repeat every test 4 times, and until my results improved, I decided to only test the water-based contact adhesives, as they yielded the strongest numbers. I also changed the time intervals to 3 hours, 1 day and 1 week. And here are the results. As you can see, Aquilim 315 beat EcoWeld and EcoStick by a decent margin. In fact, EcoWeld and EcoStick have very similar numbers, suspiciously similar. Let's have a look here. Wait a minute. Manufactured in Italy. Intercom. These are made by the same company. Damn you, Intercom. An odd name for a glue company, isn't it? By the way, Intercom makes all these variations of EcoStick. Is this really necessary? Oh, whatever. 1816B is the one everyone seems to use, so that's the one I'm testing. This test was better, but it had a lot of problems. The sample set was still a bit inadequate. Also, the fact that I'm only recording the peak instantaneous force and not the total amount of work it takes to pull the leather apart. And the fact that I was pulling the leather apart by hand. In the next test, I attempted to fix some of these issues with limited success. I wanted less variance in the numbers, so I tested each glue 6 times each interval. I wanted to make the pulling force more constant, so I built this ridiculous contraption with elastics and pulleys and weights to try and keep the force constant. Did I mention I have no idea what I'm doing? Well, here are the results for this test. Barge cement once again beats the water-based glues, of which Aqualim leads the pack, at least for the 24-hour test. For the week test, the numbers kind of collapse. I have no clue what happened there. Also, for this test, I plugged the meter into my computer to measure the force over time, and that's when the issues with that meter started to reveal themselves. The software that it comes with is moderately terrible. Doing multiple tests is very slow, and if you unplug the meter, it crashes. At least Microsoft Word doesn't crash if I unplug my printer. Well, not often. The software showed me that this meter only samples 5 times a second, which is suboptimal. So it. I'll get a better meter. I bought this baby, and it's, as the kids say, the bee's knees. I mean, compare this sample from the last meter to this one from the new meter. And the instructions even tell you how to program for the serial port so you can write your own software. Now, I have to talk about something I know very little about. From what the Google tells me, the best thing to measure is the work it takes to pull the leather apart, and work equals force times displacement. To measure the displacement accurately, I would need to buy a much fancier force meter, and I'm not going to spend that much money. What I think I'm actually measuring here is the impulse, which is the force over a period of time. I'm making the assumption that the displacement for each of these tests is about the same, which isn't true, but do I really care that—
Get on with it! Yes, get on with it!
Okay, I'll move on. My apologies, but at this point, I'm about 4 months into this, and I have gone quite mad. I don't even know why I'm doing this anymore. I figured out that even Elmer's glue would probably work just fine as a leather adhesive, yet I won't stop obsessing. Also, I think someone's following me. Shh. Quiet. Don't let them see you. You'll always be Marky Mark to me. Moving on to the next test. These results look a little better. The worst numbers belong to Sewa leather adhesive, whilst the best, of course, come from Barge cement. Fiebing's Leathercraft Cement and Elmer's are about tied as the best of the worst. Then comes Eco Weld and Eco Stick. Aqualim once again is the best of the cancer-free glues. You may have noticed I didn't complete this test. That's because I started to realize that the type of leather I used seemed to have a huge effect on the numbers. Every individual test group used cuts from the same piece of leather, but the same leather wasn't always used across test groups. Now I wanted to know which type of leather would give me the best numbers with the least amount of variance. I ran another test using 3 different types of leather. A milled veg tan with a very fibrous flesh side, very loose and flexible. This unmilled veg tan with a kind of middle-of-the-road flesh side. And this, well, I'm not exactly sure what kind this is. It may be chrome tanned, but I'm not sure. It's very flexible, and the flesh side is relatively short and extremely soft. I mean, astoundingly soft. For all the tests in this video, I'm not roughing the leather. I might get higher numbers if I did, but I don't think I could rough every piece of leather consistently enough to get good results. Well, it turns out the milled, fleshy leather gave me the highest numbers with the least variance. The middle-of-the-road leather was, well, right down the middle. And the ridiculously soft leather was the worst. None of the glues really did anything with that leather. I may have well used mayonnaise. That just shows how important roughing up your leather is. So, from now on, I would only use the milled leather. On to the last test. For this one, I'm testing all the glues as well as 2 new ones. Bulldog water-based contact adhesive by Springfield Leather Company and Saragum. No clue how to pronounce that. It's French, so probably Sarejuju Pupugu. Now, since this is the last test I'm doing, and this is the last test, I can't do this anymore. I've been doing this for far too long. Seriously, there is so much I left out of this video. I don't really remember my pre-adhesive life. I have to find out where my trousers have gone. I have to find out where my wife went. At least I think I was married. Since this is the last one, I'm going to give you my overall thoughts on each glue as I show you the results. So here it is, from worst to best. The worst performance was by Sewa Leather Adhesive, which makes me sad because Sewa makes Tokanol, which I think is great. This stuff comes in a tub and is a white pasty kind of goop. It goes on thick and gives you plenty of time to position after contact. As a glue, it's very disappointing. It barely works at all. The second worst overall glue and the worst water-based contact adhesive was Bulldog by Springfield Leather Company. It's a white liquid that has a distinct but not too strong smell that reminds me of paint. Being a contact adhesive, I was surprised how bad this performed. There's a decent gap between this and the other contact adhesives. I actually question if I got a bad bottle, or maybe it froze during shipping. I'd like a chance to test this one again from a different bottle. So I wouldn't rule this one out yet, but at this point I can't recommend it. The best of the worst is Fiebing's Leathercraft Cement. I really like this glue. It goes on easy. It has the consistency of Elmer's or most other PVA glues. When you sand the edges, the glue doesn't get all gummy, which is another drawback of barge cement. I think, despite its relatively poor numbers, it totally works fine. But given the next glue's performance, I don't think it makes sense to use this one anymore. This one was a big surprise. Plain old Elmer's multi-purpose glue performed shockingly well for what it is. It was the second best performing non-contact adhesive. If you're in a pinch, Elmer's glue makes a fine leather adhesive. I'm going to say the next two were a tie, although I think EcoStick may have been a bit more consistent and may have done just a teensy bit better than EcoWeld. They are both made by the same company. They are definitely not the same glue, but they are extremely similar. I will say the lid for the Tandy EcoWeld bottle is just plain silly. You unscrew one lid and then you have to pry a second lid off, and dried adhesive builds up around the edge, so it gets more and more difficult to pry off, and you need a tool to do it. EcoStick, it's just a squeeze bottle, works great, nice and simple. Overall, both of these will work just fine. Both are contact cements, similar in consistency but not application to Elmer's or PVA glue. They go on easy, turn transparent when they're ready to be joined, and they sand and buff clean. This one, Saragugu Pupu, Saragum, was oddly unique, but it performed extremely well, especially since it's not really a contact adhesive, I think. One downside to this glue is that any information about it is very hard to find. I'm not even sure who makes it. I couldn't find a safety data sheet for this stuff, so I have no idea what's in it. Every website who sells it just says it's water-based. The bottle I got didn't even come with instructions. These are the most official-looking bottles of the stuff I've been able to find, and they don't tell me much. It worked best for me when pressing the leather together immediately after applying it, and the glue is immediately tacky. Immediately. The brush I was applying it with started to quickly gum up and stick to the leather. That said, I still had a little time to position the leather after pressing the pieces together. Because the glue was so tacky, I don't think I'll use it, but I was very impressed by how strong it was. And the winner of the 2023 water-based contact adhesive Sunday Smackdown is Aquilim 315. When I started this, I expected EcoStick to win, but Aquilim was just consistently outperforming all the others. It has since become my favorite. It's very similar to the Intercom contact adhesives in consistency and application. It does have a distinctive smell that I can't quite place, but I wouldn't call it stinky. It sands and buffs clean, the bottle doesn't suck, and it is easy to apply. So that's it. Germany wins again. And here's barge cement, which I honestly think might be too strong for most leatherwork. Almost any of these glues will work fine for most people. As thorough as I tried to be, I hope it was apparent that I have no idea what I'm doing. My methods were deeply flawed and I was profoundly inebriated during most of this. There are many, many details I left out of this video. There's also other glues I'd like to test, and maybe I could find a force meter that measures Nope, I take that back. I'm just glad this is over. Please, do not like, do not comment, and don't even think about subscribing. I don't ever want to do this again. I am going to get drunk now.